Well, it's time for another gardening week, and I've been a little bit ill, and so I haven't been able to sort of cycle and hike and do all the other things that I normally do. So I've been able to just crack on with the gardening, and that has been great. I've done a few things that I always do, but just brought them brought them earlier in the month. And I've tried something new this year, and that is topping all the beetroot. So I always find if you leave the beetroot in with all the leaves, then the leaves all just gradually start to sort of rot through winter, and underneath that canopy of leaf you get a lot of slug and snail problems, and you've no real good sense as to how much beetroot you've actually got available to harvest. So this year, rather than just put all the beetroot into store, which is what I normally do, I've left it in the bed so it's nice and easy to harvest. It stays fresher because it's still in the bed, the roots are still in the ground. You get new leaf growth, well that's my expectation, and those leaves will be nice and high quality and tender, so you'll be able to harvest those. And of course you can see exactly what you've got, and you can clear out any slugs and snails and whatever, and you can protect them from the worst of the weather by just popping a bit of fleece over them and closing this cold frame top. Yeah, I'm interested to see. This is what I do with my carrots, and I'll show you my carrots now. So I'll just close this one up. I'll move you over. So here's the carrot bed. So I always top my carrots, and again I can see exactly what I've got. I can clear out the slugs and the snails. I can interplant in between the carrots if I want to. I'm probably not going to do that this time yet because I'm going to be clearing this whole bed pretty soon. There's a slug. And you kind of just find things like that. A carrot that I'm not going to be eating, but looked superficially as if, it had a nice top growing on it. So it looked superficially as if it was edible. So I now kind of get a sense as to exactly how many carrots I've got here, how many weeks it's going to last, and it's going to last me about 3 weeks. So in this bed I've found quite a few slugs, as I'm just going through it now, finding, I think I've taken maybe 10 slugs out so far. So there is a slug issue in this bed. I expect there'll be a slug issue in my main carrot bed, so I'm going to top that as well, and then I'll talk you through what I think of all the different benefits. So this is the main carrot bed, and although I've worked quite hard on this bed to try and keep it slug free, I know from my experience last year that it's just not possible. It's just such a nice slug and snail habitat in here. In fact, I've got there's 2 snails on top of the net here. Right then, so I've got rid of all the nets, but I'm going to put the net back on again, as you'll see later. But let's just think about some of the benefits here. So the biggest risk is that carrot fly will get in here now, and that's why I'm going to put the net on later. The benefits are myriad. So here's a trivial one to get started, which is I get all this green material to get into the compost heap whilst it's still going to rot down quite rapidly. The second benefit is I see exactly what's going on in here. So I can see the harvest that I've got to look forward to. I can see whether there's any damage to the actual carrot tops, the necks of the carrot rather. I can easily harvest the carrots, which is not necessarily an easy task in the middle of winter when they've got all these horrible tops on them and they're all slimy and collapsed on top of the carrots themselves. I can put the cold frame top on, and the benefit of the cold frame top is that it keeps the bed dry, or dryish, which stops the carrots splitting because they don't get overly wet. There's no real disadvantage to taking the tops off because the carrots have effectively stopped growing. They're all plenty big enough for harvest now, but new tops will grow and they'll be lovely, you know, small compact greens rather than these huge greens. And of course I can then now, once I can get in here, I can start tackling the slug and snail problem. And that's really the biggest advantage, because I really want to get on top of the slugs and snails before they decide to move in and start feeding on the actual carrot roots themselves. And I can already see there's the odd slug in here. Not too many, but the odd ones. So I'm really pleased with this. As I said, I can see now the carrots, I can see how big they are, I can see any damage to the shoulders, like on this one for example I've taken out, so I can harvest the ones with damaged shoulders first. At the moment I can't see any evidence of carrot fly kind of flying in, which is great news. That is the sort of risk of doing it so early. I normally do it end of October, or you know, even into November sometimes, but the weather's nice today. I just feel like experimenting, be doing it a bit earlier. The real massive advantage is that I get to harvest the carrots from the ground all the way through winter and spring. They get a frost on them, so they're super sweet. The taste is incomparable with the taste of carrots that are harvested and stored in sand or just in sacks or whatever. You know, they're just super fresh and sweet. You know, it's just, as I say, you can't compare really the taste of freshly dug carrots in winter with ones that have been harvested and stored. And yeah, so I'm going to get the cold frame tops put on here now. That will keep the beds dry. That'll reduce the slug issues as well, and in addition to that, it'll just make it easier to keep them warm so that they don't get too hard a frost on them. Although these are Eskimo, so they're pretty resistant to a hard frost. I've never lost any to a frost anyway with the cold frame tops on. Yeah, dry keeps the slugs off. Dry means that I'm able to get these inner rows replanted with something else. As I say, like spare lettuces and things like that, which I probably will put in actually today. And yeah, there's really no advantage other than I'm kind of tying up a bed by leaving them in like this. But carrots are such an important crop to us, I don't really mind. I don't feel like I'm tying up a bed. I feel like I'm just maximising the quality of my harvest. And yeah, so I'm going to get on. Right, I've cleaned up after myself, and I'll just show you what the bed looks like. And I'm just going to harvest some samples to see if I've got any slug problems. So I'll just harvest one per row, I think, if we can get it out. Maybe not every row, probably too many. And those look great at the moment, so I think I got it in time. So I'm going to close it up now. I'm going to put a net over the top of it all just to keep any carrot fly out of it, because I don't need to get in there now for a while. I'm a little bit dubious how much sense it makes putting the net over now, given that I didn't see any carrot fly about at all, and if I had seen them, then I'd put a net over the top of them and lock them in there. But I think just belt and braces, just in case there's a sort of new batch of them hatching right now and out and about over the rest of October and early November, then it kind of just makes sense to do that, I think. So yeah, I'm pleased as punch with that. I will get that replanted eventually. I've just thrown a few slug pellets in there just to clear out any slugs before I put any more lettuces in there. But other than that, I think I'm all done. So I've got to do a bit of juggling around today. Last week I put this cover over the beetroot and it's obviously not high enough, which I knew. But what I need to do is put another cold frame top on, not a cold frame top, another top on here, and I don't know whether that's going to work. Yeah. And I've got a spare one over there, so I'll get that moved. I do love how easy it is to move all these things around. It's especially on a day like today when there's no wind. And I just have one little support here which holds everything together, so I just need to undo that. So I just need to move that over there. I can just put this back on now. These are all 8 years old, these frames. You know, and there's bits of rot on them and stuff, they won't last forever, but they're still doing okay. And then I just need to reclip the chains on. Yeah, that's perfect. Right, it's looking really nice actually, that lettuce bed. Really happy with that. I just put these little supports on just to make sure that this top is attached to this, otherwise they can blow away in high storms. But that's why I like to have these freestanding, you know, not attached to posts that go into the beds, so that I can easily just move them around. There we go. There's little supports on. So much better. So now I need to get this last pepper bed cleared and replanted, and there's a fair number of peppers on there actually, a few of them going a bit mouldy, and I just chop the peppers off. It's kind of easier to find all the peppers and get them removed once the plants are out. Oh, that's quite a nice selection of peppers there. So these are just the ones that are ripening, and these are the green ones which I'm going to give away because we've got plenty there. We've still got a few in the greenhouse, but yeah, I mean, I'm pretty happy with those actually. These are, I mean, we've been cropping since what, early July or something like that. So these are just mostly the second crops that just haven't had time to ripen, as are these, of course. Yeah, it's worked well, my pepper system this year. So this pepper bed's all cleared now, and just put a couple of containers of compost down, and I've given it a reasonable water. It's reasonably moist, but I'm watering the planting holes now because I'm putting kales in this bed and spring cabbages in that one. So just giving them a good drench. So these are nice little plants, little dwarf curly kales, a little tiny bit of whitefly on them, and so I do need to be a little bit careful about that. I've got this sort of seaweed spray for whitefly, which is not kind of economical to use on large plants in my main beds, but it is on these little plants, and once they're in the ground I'll give them a spray because it is a little bit hard on them, so it's better to spray them, you know, when they're strong plants with decent root systems. There is still a little bit of risk of club root being around at this time of year, so ideally I'd be putting these out a bit later, but I do probably need these for a harvest in winter, and so I really do need to get them in the ground. I can't really wait until, you know, November, which would be better when the ground's colder and club root spores are inactive. So I have just dusted the holes with a little bit of calcium oxide, and hopefully that'll just mitigate any risk. Ideally I would put more in than this. I'd normally put 9 in at this time of year in a bed this size, because they won't grow huge between now and winter, but 6 is all I had. And then the spring cabbages, I think, are a mix of Offenham and what's the other one? Caraflex, I think. And again, they've got a tiny bit of whitefly. It's kind of inevitable because I've got so much whitefly at home on the collect beds. These were started 25th of August. And as I say, I mean, I don't normally put my cabbages out at this time of year. Obviously, I'm not expecting to harvest these in winter heat, but I do want these in early spring because I am a little bit short, potentially, of brassicas this year. So I always kind of have a bed like this one in reserve, just in case I do need to put some earlier brassicas in. But my ideal time to plant out all of my spring brassicas is sort of January, February time. But not every time can you do things ideally. Sometimes you just have to compromise and hope for the best. Well, I'm quite happy with that. I'm now going to put this bed on its little chocks and keep it well ventilated because I don't want them overheating. We got through the week and just finished laying all the veg out on the table. And for anybody new, this is just our family's weekly harvest. And so we try and do a table like this every week of the year. But obviously the makeup of the table is radically different, but I do try for 30 different things every week of the year. So we have got gorgeous apples. Obviously we're still just picking apples fresh off the trees as we need them. But we picked a few this week, really lovely. Best apples, I think, always come sort of late October, November time, but anyway, nice. Quite a lot of nice carrots, and yeah, loads of those still to come. Potatoes from the store, onions from the store. These are just the little use now rejects basically, but we always try and get through those first. Last of the peppers. So, well, we might still have some in the store, I'm not sure, but I mean, basically they're nearly there. Some of them are a bit confusing, like this one, like a yellow bell pepper. I didn't plant any yellow bell peppers, so I'm not quite sure where that's come from, but I did plant some orange ones, so very strange. Yeah, last of the pears really, we're just processing pears at the moment, bubbling away in the kitchen. And oh yes, I love it when a plan comes together. This is the first harvest of the yacon tubers from the little pots on the drive. And they were kind of completely shaded by scaffolding for all through the summer. So they hardly got any light, and yet, what a lovely harvest, and what a nice size, just a reasonable size. Like often yacon tubers grow way too big to sort of use in a meal, and you end up, you know, having them split in the fridge for ages. But yeah, these are really lovely. I'm really pleased with those. So that's out of 1.5 pots on the drive, that little harvest there. And as I say, probably if the light levels had been better, maybe I would have 2 full tubs out of that. Maybe, well, at least, yeah, 2 full tubs per pot perhaps. So really fussy with those, so we'll definitely be doing that again. Yacon is a really unique tuber actually. You know, it's sugar-free, but it's full of fibres that are digested by the gut microbiome. So it's super healthy, and it's kind of really crisp. It's really unique in its kind of flavour. As I say, I always say, if people ask me what it's like, I always say it's a bit like a crispy pear, a really crispy pear. It's got a bit of sweetness to it, not a lot of crunch to it. And you can eat it fresh, chopped into a salad, or you can cook with it. We often put it into stir fries or curries, or you know, those sorts of stews and things like that. I like it steamed as well, just chopped into my steamed veg mix. Yeah, it's really nice, and it retains its crispy nature even after it's cooked. But as I say, you can eat it raw as well. Just started picking some of the Jerusalem artichokes. And, you know, the quality of these is so much nicer at this time of year. You know, we just pick them from the ground as we need them. But when you're picking them in February, they're not as nice as that. So again, they're super healthy for the gut microbiome. Last few tomatoes there. And don't really know what I'm going to do with those. Probably make them into a chutney or something like that. As I say, last of the peppers. A few beetroot from the store. First big radicchio and red cabbage and cauliflower. We've got quite a few cauliflowers still to come. That is another nice plan that came together really well. I've always wondered, trying to find a really good succession to follow my onions, and yeah, little cauliflowers for autumn work lovely. Timing works perfectly. Lots of lovely little Brussels sprout leaves there, a few kale leaves there, some chard there, some leeks, last of my turnips and radish, salad onions, a few scrappy little bits of Asian greens. That's all we've got left over until the main crop arrives in the polytunnel, which will be 2 or 3 weeks' time. Just picking tomatoes really as we need them on the day from the greenhouse now. We've got a lot of tomatoes in the greenhouse, but they do have a tendency to split, so I just find it's best to pick them as I need them. From the store, lovely Crown Prince squashes, made loads of passata, just ridiculous amounts, and we also save the stock from the passata. And now we've got spinach. Most of that will go into the salad mixes actually, because I really like spinach in the salads, as will these baby leaf. Not quite that baby leaf now, but they're still, you know, young and tender and really nice in the salad mixes. So they're a mix of beetroot leaves and golden beetroot and red beetroot and chard, sown for the purpose, so sown as a salad harvest. And then we've got the salad lettuce bases for the salad. So I'm going to make up those salads now, as I always do, and you get to see that all done up.